What is going on, guys? It's Agarth and Yuri, and today I'm going to be discussing how the UFC is actually a satanic organization. We're going to be breaking this down into a couple different subsections. Let's start off with the first one. This is going to be UFC's quite literal connection to Satanists and ball worshippers and evil elites, such as Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, so Jeffrey Epstein, right? Jeffrey Epstein is connected to a lot of people. There's actually two people he was connected to, or that we can trace back to having some connection with. It may not be, super. These people may not have been super close with them. Who really knows? You can speculate on that all you want. But there's two people that connect to Jeffrey Epstein that connect to the UFC. So let's break this down. So Jeffrey Epstein was obviously connected to Donald Trump, right? And then Donald Trump is obviously connected to Dana White. Very close. Dana White being one of the guys who basically started the UFC and has ran the UFC. I don't think he runs it as much anymore. Obviously, there's Hunter Campbell and all these other people behind the scenes and stuff like that. But Dana White, I would say, has a pretty good say in the UFC, right? So there's Dana White, of course. That one's pretty obvious, his connection to Trump and Trump's connection to Epstein. People can speculate on Trump's connection to Epstein all you want, but he did for sure have some connection to Epstein. There's real photos. Obviously, there's the old ones, but you can speculate on how deep that connection goes all you want. But there is for sure a connection between Trump and Epstein, and obviously a connection between Trump and Dana White. But not only just Trump, too. Larry Ellison is also connected to Jeffrey Epstein. Larry Ellison is noted as being in one of Jeffrey Epstein's personal address books. Now, Larry Ellison, if you don't know, is the owner of Oracle and one of the richest people in the world. He also, not too long ago, bought TikTok around the same time a certain nation was trying to censor a bunch of stuff going on, a bunch of truth. I don't want to get into all that, but yeah, so Larry Ellison has a connection to Jeffrey Epstein. How far does his connection go? I'm not really sure. You can speculate on that. But Larry Ellison, his son, is the owner of Paramount, and Paramount, of course, now owns the UFC. So there you have both the ownership of the UFC connected to Jeffrey Epstein, and you have one of the key figures in the UFC, Dana White, connected to Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe not. It's not directly, of course. There's no concrete evidence to say that they are directly connected to Jeffrey Epstein, but you can make a link between both ownership and one of the top people that has say in the UFC to Jeffrey Epstein. And Jeffrey Epstein, of course, was a terrible person. Some would say like a Satanist. He seemed to worship Baal, obviously did terrible things with children. I don't want to get into all that, but you get what I'm saying. So yeah, there is a quite literal connection between the UFC and people in the UFC, such as Dana White, and people like Satanists. So there you go. There's a quite literal, real connection between the UFC and Satanists, or Baal worshippers, whatever you want to call them. Another reason you could consider the UFC satanic is because some of the stuff it pushes degeneracy, more specifically gambling, although it does, I would say, you could argue it pushes a little bit of like drinking and alcohol too because they have the sponsorships. But it definitely heavily promotes sports betting and gambling, like Polymarket and DraftKings. And they even have people like Minty Bets or like Johnny the Greek that will come on and like tell you what you should bet sometimes. So yeah, you can 100% say that the UFC promotes gambling and degeneracy. And another thing I didn't even think about too, shout out Aniki MMA. If you want to learn more about like the gambling and degeneracy and stuff like that the UFC pushes, he has some really great videos, honestly like a lot better than mine. But one thing I never really considered is I just watched this video where he was talking about industry plans, and the industry plans they're pushing, when you think about it, they're like people like Sean O'Malley, like Tommy McMillan. These are the type of people that like push degeneracy. Like Sean O'Malley, he's like got the full send like people and stuff. Like those are people that are like, oh, drinking and gambling, like all that shit. You know what I mean? So like not only are they quite literally like promoting gambling, like stuff like Polymarket, DraftKings, but they're also promoting like fighters that promote like gambling and that type of stuff and drinking and degeneracy. You could consider that too. So yeah, UFC definitely promotes degeneracy, and if you consider that type of stuff satanic, then of course that is also another reason you could view the UFC as satanic. Another reason you could consider the UFC satanic, and this may be a little bit of a stretch for some people, is if you consider the UFC like goy slop or like bread and circuses. I mean, it kind of really is. Like, it's a distraction from a lot of more important real stuff that's going on in the world. Of course, there's a lot of other examples, like other sports, like Netflix, many other things that are bred in circuses as well, or you can at least consider bred in circuses. But at the end of the day, it's like UFC, I do think it's peak entertainment. I do love it more than any other sport. I don't really watch any other sports or anything like that. I love the UFC, but it is sort of like a distraction from other shit. It's kind of like Goy Slap. So for that reason, you could kind of consider that uh, I don't know, attribute of the UFC. Now, my last reason, and honestly, I wouldn't really say this is that satanic, but I guess it would just be the brutality of the UFC. Like, some of these people, they get really fucked up and they get fucked up for life. Like, obviously, there's a lot of people that have crazy CT and they're just mentally fucked. Like, I don't know, you can go schizo and shit, or like not even know where they're at, or not be able to remember anything past like 5 minutes, or maybe they can only remember long term, but they can't remember short term. So yeah, like the CTE and the brutality of this, sometimes it can like really fuck people's lives up. Like I don't know if I really consider that satanic, but I don't know, it's fucked up. So I thought I'd just mention that too. Not only is the brutality for the fighters bad, but another thing I never really thought about is we all as fight fans love seeing people get fucked up. Like, doesn't that seem kind of like a little bit mentally off that we all love seeing people get fucked up? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's just something to think about too. I never really thought about it that way. I think another argument for how the UFC could be satanic is its censorship. Although the UFC doesn't really censor people or anything like that, I know Dana White has always been like really pro free speech, whether he agrees with it or not. It does seem like with the Paramount deal, at least, they've kind of cut back on what fighters are able to say and do. And I know, like, for example, like Sean Strickland, he got his mic cut when he was about to start talking about, like, an actual important issue, like the grooming of young women in MMA, and now that seems to be a problem. So, like, although I don't think, like, cutting your mic and stuff like that is necessarily satanic, like, obviously they don't want to have too much crazy stuff going on, like, they want to keep it professional. I do think you could kind of consider that satanic because, like, the truth needs to be out there. If people have like a good message, you should allow them to spread that good message. So hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. Hopefully that made sense and I didn't sound too schizo or anything like that. I didn't want to go into too much detail because I don't really know what all I can say on here on YouTube. I know YouTube, they've got some deals with some certain people and they may not like what I have to say. So yeah, but like and subscribe would mean a lot. Appreciate the support from you guys. Have a good one.